Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible and why it's extremely important for our understanding and our interpretation. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to stay notified for future uploads. And if you have any questions or comments during this video, go ahead and leave them in the comments section below. This discussion first begins with a talk about the term canon. Since when we talk about the shape of the Hebrew Bible, we're talking about the shape of the canon itself. Nowadays, there's a lot of talk about the Star Wars canon or the Marvel's Universe canon, and I'm sure that you've heard since the purchase of LucasArts by Disney, they've announced that the Star Wars Extended Universe, the EU, which includes all the novels and all the comic books and other materials, is no longer considered canon anymore, which is an absolute travesty for most of us. Canon, as understood by Star Wars and Marvel's fans, is similar to the way we understand canon with regards to biblical literature. It's a term we use to describe the books which are included from the books which are not. However, the process by which the Star Wars and Marvel's films became canonized is nowhere near the process by which the biblical books became canonized. Okay, so what makes a biblical book canon? Oftentimes we think a book is considered canon based on a council's decision or some other type of formal religious decree. For example, in 90 AD at the Council of Jamnia, the canon of the Hebrew Bible was supposedly finalized. However, today I hope to explain to you that what makes a biblical book canon is much more deeply rooted in the textual landscape and compositional framework that spans the biblical books themselves, and that the Hebrew Bible was considered canonical by faith communities long before any formal council took place. Come on guys, 90 AD, that's such a late date anyways. In this book, Textuality in the Bible by Michael B. Shepard, it is noted that Stephen Chapman suggests that the very thing that makes a biblical book canon is the fact that they were written in light of one another and thus intended to be read together. Shepard also comments on this point, stating, "There was an awareness of the corpus of biblical literature that went into the final formation of the text themselves. This is what we call canon consciousness." So there is a compositional component that went into the crafting of the individual books with an awareness of the canon as a whole. However, this canon consciousness that we observe through the Bible's web of intertextuality and interbiblical exegesis may not only refer to the books of the Bible as a mere collection, but there's evidence to suggest that this canon consciousness also extends to an awareness of the actual shaping and arrangement of the Hebrew Bible itself. So the canon of the Hebrew Bible is arranged in a threefold manner. Starting with the law, this is the book of Moses or the Pentateuch. It's the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. This is the first section to the threefold design. After the law, we have the prophet section, which includes Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the book of the 12, which is Hosea through Malachi. And lastly, we have the writing section. So we have the law, the prophets, and the writings. The writings include Psalms, Job, Proverbs, Ruth, Song of Songs, Ecclesiastes, Lamentations, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and then ending the entire Hebrew Bible with the book of Chronicles. This order agrees with the oldest, most complete manuscript of the Hebrew Bible that we have today, Codex Leningradensis. And if you've heard of the word Tanakh, this is an acronym for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, the law, the prophets, and the writings. This is the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible. There is both internal and external evidence for this arrangement. Today we won't have the time to talk about the disputed arrangements within the individual sections. However, I hope to lay the groundwork for such a discussion for a future video. So let's first begin with a talk on the external evidence. First, we discover in the prologue to the apocryphal work of Jesus ben Sirach, dating to approximately 130 BC, a witness to this threefold shape. It opens by saying, "Many great teachings have been given to us through the law, the prophets, and the other books." We also see witness of this threefold design in a reconstructed composite text found amongst the Judean desert texts, aka the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's called 4QMMT. 4QMMT stands for Text Fragments Found in K4 of Qumran. MMT is an acronym for Mitzat Maaseh HaTorah, which translates to English, Some Works of the Law. So 4QMMT is just a fancy designator for this text, and there's a fragmentary line in 4QMMT that's been reconstructed to read the book of Moses, the books of the prophet, and David. This example is similar to the next example that we're going to talk about. Luke 24:44, which is definitely a more familiar text to everybody, also witnesses to the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible. Here we read the phrase, the law, the prophets, and the Psalms. Not only does this reflect the threefold shape, but it also reflects the placement of the book of Psalms at the beginning of the third section, like we stated earlier, at the beginning of the writing section. This claim is strengthened by comparing this text to 4QMMT, where it calls the third division by the name of David. The Psalms are usually collectively attributed to David, so there's really nothing strange going on between the differences of 4QMMT and Luke 24:44. The threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible with the book of Psalms as the first book of the third section is also attested by Philo in the 1st century AD in his work titled On the Contemplative Life. So after considering the external evidence, Ben Sirach, 4QMMT, Luke 24:44, and Philo, we can maintain that the attestation of the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible is as early as the 2nd century BC, long before any formal decree ever took place. Now we've made it to the fun stuff. There is internal compositional evidence for this phenomenon. There's what we call compositional seams, or similar terminology at the points of contact between the divisions that could hardly be attributed to mere chance. These compositional seams at these strategic junctures tie all the pieces of the Bible together, and they reveal the work of a final composer and authorial mind. So there is seamwork between the law and the prophets, and between the prophets and the writings. The seamwork between the law and the prophets is Deuteronomy 34:5 through Joshua 1:9. So there's a piece of text there that tie those two blocks together. And then the seamwork between the prophets and the writings is from Malachi 3:22 to Psalm 1. So there's a string of text there that tie these two pieces together, which then tie the entire book together. Let's first take a look at the seamwork between the law and the prophets. Here we'll see an expectation for the messianic prophet like Moses. In Deuteronomy 34:10 it reads, "And since that time, no prophet had arisen in Israel like Moses." This is picking up from Deuteronomy 18:15 and verse 18, which reads in verse 15, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you and from your brothers, and you will listen to him." These texts in this seam are accompanied by the instruction to Joshua in Joshua 1:8 to meditate in Torah day and night. Joshua 1:8 reads, "And this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you will be careful to do everything that is written in it. Because then you'll make your way prosperous, and then you'll become wise." So when we compare what's going on in this seam between the law and the prophets with the seam that we're about to look at between the prophets and the writings, we'll discover something strikingly similar. So we saw in the seam between the law and the prophets an expectation for the messianic prophet like Moses. Now in the seam between the prophets and the writings, we'll see an expectation for the forerunner prophet like Elijah, who will prepare the way before the day of the Lord. Malachi 3:23 reads, "Look, I, the Lord, am going to send to you the prophet Elijah before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord." This is picking up from Malachi 3:1, just before it. But most importantly, it's similar to what we saw in the seamwork between the law and the prophets. There we saw the expectation of the messianic prophet like Moses, accompanied by the words of Joshua 1:8, speaking about meditating on scripture day and night. So just as we saw there, we see here in this seam between the prophets and the writings, similar terminologies, speaking about the forerunner prophet like Elijah, accompanied by the words of Psalm 1, speaking about meditating on scripture day and night. Psalm 1:2-3 reads, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. And he is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yield its fruit in its season, and its leaf doesn't wither. And in everything which he does, he prospers." As I stated earlier, the presence of similar terminology at these two strategic compositional seams could hardly be attributed to mere chance, especially when we analyze this in light of the external evidence for the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible that we already talked about. These compositional seams reveal the work of a final composer who took the time to merge the larger works of the Hebrew Bible into a unified whole. He's inviting its readers to interpret the smaller parts of the Bible in light of its overarching compositional framework and theological message. That message being based on the messianic hope in whom we await by reading scripture day and night. The strategic design of the threefold shape of the Hebrew Bible calls us to pay closer attention to the text, its arrangement, and its intended meaning as a whole. Thanks for watching, guys. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and please share it with your friends and family. If you want to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, you can do so at Exploring Mikra. If you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can send me a message at mikraacademy@gmail.com. All these details are found in the description below. Peace, guys.